What's up, everybody? It's time for another episode of RFA Insider with us, the Insider Crew.
The Insider Crew?
Yeah, you know, we're the hosts of RFA Insider, so we're the Insider Crew.
Okay, well, that was Eugene, and I'm Amy, and I guess we're now calling ourselves the Insider Crew.
Yeah, and today in the rundown, we have one story from the Laos service and another from the Cantonese and Mandarin services.
Then, in How It's Made, we're talking to RFA's social media editor, who is appearing today under his Starbucks name, Wilson.
Yeah, and he's not a blood-stained volleyball. All of that and more coming up on RFA Insider. You're listening to the RFA Insider podcast, made by two real-life staffers at Radio Free Asia.
If you'd like to send us feedback, there are many ways you can do this.
You can send us an email at insider@rfa.org.
You can comment on our webpage at rfa.org/English/insider. Just click on the episode you're listening to and write your comment below.
Or you can send us a tweet at RFA Insider or visit us in person.
No, don't visit us in person.
Right, don't visit us in person. But anyway, we really want to hear from you.
So tune in every other Friday and we'll take you behind the scenes.
And tell you what the news really means here at RFA Insider. So you're not a fan of the Insider Crew, Amy?
No.
How about the Insiders? Maybe we'll come up with a nickname later. So let's start this podcast today again with yet another Podcast Free Asia segment. All right. I've begun putting the webpage together, and it functions, but that's the best thing I can say about it right now. The URL is, again, rfa.org/English/insider, and you can click on the About page at the top or on the side. We have our bios in there so you can learn all about us, the Insider Crew. And you can click on the episodes for more information about each episode. And
Yes.
also to leave a comment, currently you need to go to the relevant episode page, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and then there's a button there. The faster way to reach us would be to email us, because that'll go directly to our work emails, and we check those more regularly, I would think.
Yeah, shout out to Eugene for setting that up.
Oh, shout out to me. All right. I'd also like to issue a slight correction regarding the film Mai, which we spoke about in episode 2. I said it was a rom-com. That's because the first 15 seconds of the trailer are comedic, but I've been seeing a lot of stuff online about how it's very much like La La Land, and I really wouldn't describe La La Land as a romantic comedy. It's more like a romantic drama with comedic elements. So if Mai is like La La Land, then that's how we would describe it, I suppose. I still haven't seen it, but people who have seen it said definitely it's more dramatic.
Okay.
All right, so let's then get into the rundown.
The rundown.
So
Right.
our first story today comes from the Laos service, and I'd like to start off by asking Eugene if you have any experiences with traditional medicine in Asia.
Well, actually, yeah, I've never really done acupuncture, but I have tried hanyak in Korea before. Hanyak is, of course, Han meaning Chinese and yak meaning medicine, so I guess it's Chinese medicine. I've also heard it called Oriental medicine before. And there's many different kinds. Depending on what ailment you have, they'll mix in the herbs and the roots, and you drink it, and it's usually really bitter. And I'm not knocking it, but if I have a headache, I'm going to take an aspirin or a Tylenol, I think.
Fair enough. I've
Yeah.
seen the pouches in Korea,
Yeah.
the red ones with the medicine.
Sure.
So I'm not sure if you know, but in traditional Chinese medicine, it's known that bile from a certain type of Asian black bear called moon bears is considered this great cooling medicine,
Okay.
which basically means that it helps cool the heat in your body or the inflammation.
Wow.
So people use bear bile to detoxify their body, purify your liver, fight fever, and it supposedly even helps you improve your eyesight.
Really?
Yes. So there is actually science to back up these claims. Bear bile contains high levels of ursodeoxycholic acid, which
Wow.
is proven to dissolve your gallstones and treat liver disease. So there is some proven efficacy behind bear bile.
Bear bile. Okay.
So unsurprisingly, the taste of bear bile can induce vomiting if you have it. It's supposedly very fishy and bitter. So people usually take it as like a pill or a powder, but you can also rinse your eyes, like eye drops with bear
Okay,
bile.
so you're saying that if you ingest it, though, if you wanted to stop yourself from vomiting, you'd have to bear down and try not to vomit, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
As you can guess, wild bear bile benefits humans. It's not great for the moon bears, who are now endangered due to poaching. So last week, Lao authorities raided an office in Laos and rescued 16 baby moon bears. The month before, in February, 2 other moon bears were rescued in Laos.
So you could say they barely made it out alive.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So back to the story. Why are so many cases coming out of Laos? Laos is actually very conducive for wildlife trafficking for several reasons. The first is that it's a very biodiverse place. It's got tons of forests, and inside those forests are high-value animals like pangolins, rhinos, and elephants.
Pangolin? What's a pangolin?
Pangolin is, I think they look like baby armadillos.
Oh.
You know, a bit of those.
When I saw this, I thought it was like a misspelling of penguin. So okay,
No.
now I learned something new. A pangolin. Okay.
Pangolins are actually big victims of traditional Chinese medicine as well.
Okay.
Very
okay.
good for the body, but bad for the pangolins.
Okay, so they raided this office, and then what happened?
So they seized the 16 baby moon bears.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I guess they're protected, so they're meant to usually be trafficked to other places like China or Vietnam to be either kept as exotic pets or to be put into bear bile farms where they're just kept alive and their bile is extracted.
I see. So it's a lot of, I guess, because of the Chinese market for these exotic ingredients from possibly endangered species that...
Yes.
Okay.
Highly sought after.
Mm-hmm.
So the second reason why Laos is victim to a lot of wildlife trafficking is that while a lot of Lao forests are protected, the country doesn't have enough resources to enforce these protections.
Yeah.
Case in point, the man responsible for trafficking those bear cubs is a Chinese national, and he has a big history of trafficking wildlife. So while the office was raided, he escaped and is still on the run right now.
Ah, okay. So I wonder, when they raided the office, did they find any evidence, or was it completely bare?
They did arrest his wife, who is not talking, but they haven't found the man responsible. So.
Okay. Well, thank you, Amy. That was a very good story.
Thank you, Eugene, for the bear puns.
Okay, all right. So let's go on to the next story. This is from the Mandarin and Cantonese services. So, Amy, are you thirsty? Because this next story is about drinks.
Ooh,
drinks. Okay. So when you lived in Korea and Japan, what was your favorite drink from either of those countries?
I would say I have pretty old people taste when it comes to drinks, so I really enjoyed just like the vast selection of bottled teas that were available.
Yeah, like the Ceylon tea, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I feel like you could walk into a convenience store in Japan and then you would just have like 5 different options of tea.
Yeah. And like different flavors, you have the oolong tea and the green tea and
or even green tea, you know, you have like different ways of brewing or like with like roasted or like cold brewed.
Yeah. It was in my case in Japan. When I lived in Japan, there was a drink called bickle that I've only ever seen for sale in vending machines, and it comes in these big glass bottles, and the taste is like those kind of small plastic yogurt drinks in the small bottles. So that's called yakuruto in Japanese, or yogurt in Korean. In Korea, I liked the Bacchus energy drink, which was around long before Red Bull came on the scene. But unlike Red Bull, which was a European company taking a Thai energy drink and marketing it to the West, Bacchus has never been Columbused in the same way. So I guess it's kind of still exclusive to Korea and the Korean diaspora. But anyway, this story is not about Korea and Japan. This is about China. And there's a group called the Little Pinks that they were angry at a drink manufacturer in China that looks like it's too Japanese. So this is going to be a very long story because it's going to go on many, many different tangents, and I'm kind of proud of some of these tangents. But so the drink company is called Nongfu Spring, and it's the target of boycott by the Little Pinks, and that's the nickname for nationalists, which in our report is described as a zealously patriotic supporter of the ruling Chinese Communist Party. And their boycott has actually hurt the company's stock. So the boycott is over several things related to the company, and I'll list them from least ridiculous to most. So the first thing is that the company's founder is China's richest man, whose name is Zhong Shan, and his son Zhong Shuqi is a U.S. citizen according to their 2020 prospectus. And I'm not sure if that's a reason for boycott, but out of the 4 reasons, this one makes the most sense, as there's a sense of rivalry between China and the U.S. in the current, geopolitical climate. So, a little xenophobia here and there is normal for a large country with a huge population like China. We've got our own xenophobes over here in the U.S., so that's to be expected.
But I would argue maybe that's more of a class conflict sort of thing, Like even if in the current geopolitical context,
yes,
if you're wealthy, you're sending your kids abroad for education, and America is still number one.
That makes sense too. Okay, the second one is we're getting more ridiculous with each one of these. So the label of the Nongfu Springs green tea shows a Japanese temple, quote unquote. Given that there is historical tension between China and Japan, I can certainly understand why some might be displeased with a Japanese temple being shown on a Chinese product. But again, this is if it is indeed a Japanese temple. We're going to talk about this a lot later, so let's just table this for now, and we'll go to the third reason. Okay, the third reason is that some of the fruity tea labels, like the grapefruit jasmine tea and the yuzu green tea, are this brand called Cha Pai. The first character is cha, meaning tea, and the second is the Greek letter pi. And this is supposed to be a pun, with pi sounding like the first character of pai di, which means party. So cha pai is supposed to be a tea party. And thank you to Bi Shan from the Cantonese service for explaining all of this to me. So long story short, the Little Pinks say that the Greek letter pi looks like a traditional Japanese gate, which is called a tori.
I guess. Yeah, I can see it, but
usually the tori has 2 lines and pi only has 1. So, I mean, that's one thing that's the first reason this is ridiculous. Second one is they say these tori are often found in front of Shinto shrines in Japan, but that's not just that. They're saying that specifically it looks like the one that's found in front of Yasukuni Jinja, which is the shrine in Tokyo that commemorates Japan's war dead. And that, of course, is the shrine that is very controversial because some of those commemorated in there are war criminals. And it's a place where all of Japan's right-wing politicians, whenever they want to stir up anything, they'll go visit there and make people in China and Korea very angry because they're visiting these war criminals who are enshrined there.
Sure, but what about Yasukuni Jinja in particular reminds them of the pi symbol is what I'd like to know.
Well, it's because of the gate in front of it, right?
Oh, I see.
That's what they're trying to say.
Right.
And finally, this is the fourth and stupidest reason, in my opinion. The spring water bottle uses a red cap, and when you put it on a white piece of paper and look at it from the top, it looks like the Japanese flag. Huge conspiracy here! Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. They're secretly Japanese! Japanese. That's kind of like reaching, right?
It's a huge reach. Personally.
But wait, there's more. So there were 2 7-Eleven branches in the eastern province of Jiangsu that actually pulled all of Nongfu Springs products from the shelves, saying that they will not sell any products that adulate Japan. But 7-Eleven is, of course, a Japanese company. So we've got a case here of a Japanese company pulling Chinese products from a store in China because Chinese products are too Japanese. So, yeah, I think that's a little bit too much on the conspiracy theories going on here. Now, about the reason number 2 about the Japanese temple on the green tea label, I took a look at the label and I said, no, that's clearly a Chinese temple. And I think I can speak on this with some amount of authority. Let me tell you why. So this is going down a very long and kind of awesome tangent.
All right.
There is a webpage called alllooksame.com, and it got its name from this facial recognition quiz, and it showed the faces of 18 East Asian people and asked you if they were Chinese, Japanese, or Korean. And this website came out in 2001. And there are a lot of Asian people that claim they can actually tell the difference upon when they look at people, whether they're Chinese, Korean, or Japanese, or other Asian populations. I claim that I am one of them. But it's not an exact science because I got you wrong the first time that I met you, actually.
Oh, well, I too thought I was one of them until I took the quiz.
I wanted to say it's not an exact science. You'll find people of all complexions and all Asian eye shapes and all brow lines and all facial structures in each of the 3 populations. But if you spent a long time around other Asians, you'll start to get the feel of it. And of course, when you see the people on the street, the key giveaway is language. What language are they speaking? That gives it away immediately. Usually. But, of course, All Look Same, the website, just gives you the headshot and tells you to guess. And when I took the quiz for the first time in 2001, I got 12 out of 18, and I was honestly disappointed with that result. I thought I should get at least 15. But most of my friends scored much worse. And of course, I told Amy to take the test, and how did you do?
I shamefully got 8 out of 15 alongside with my 2 white male coworkers.
Okay, but the average is 7, so you're better than average at the very least. And I would also like to say that you're kind of at a disadvantage because there are a lot of fashion cues that go into this. You can tell by the way people dress, whether they're from which country. And this was made in 2001. So a lot of the fashion that they're wearing at the time is current fashion for 2001 when you probably were very young and I was a college student. So
yeah, I realized from taking this just how much I rely on styling cues to tell people apart.
Yeah, so one thing that was interesting about this test is there are a lot of people that were said to be Chinese in the test, but I thought that they looked Japanese, but from a few years ago, because at the time in Hong Kong, it was a big style to try to emulate Japanese fashion, but it was like a few years off. So since this was 2001, if they look like they're Japanese in 1997, then you're like, oh, they must be Chinese then, right? So that's the way I took it back then. Okay, but all of this is to say, because we're talking about this Nongfu Spring label with the Japanese temple on the label, all the same, in later years, they went beyond just the facial tests, and they started to introduce tests on CJ&K food, CJ&K cityscapes, and CJ&K traditional architecture. And on the traditional architecture one, I scored 14. Ooh. So I can say with some authority that temple is definitely Chinese. It is not Japanese. Did you take the architecture one?
I did. I scored, I think, a 13. So you definitely have more authority than me.
Well, only by one. Only by one. But I think a hard and fast rule, although this does not always apply, is that Japanese roofs tend to slope downward. Chinese roofs slope down and then back up. And then the Korean roofs are kind of somewhere in between. But like I said, there are many counterexamples to all of this. But all of that is to say, definitely no, the drink shows a roof that slopes down and then up. So it is definitely a Chinese temple, and the little pinks need to shut the heck up.
If you reach for the moon, ...
Okay. Did you take any of the other tests on there besides...
I didn't. Did you?
Yeah, I did.
I feel like food would be such an easy one.
No, because sometimes it'll be like a bowl of noodles, and you're like...
That's all for the rundown. So next up on RFA Insider, how it's made.
어떻게 만들었지? 답을 봅시다, 네. 怎么做的?
How it's made.
All right, so welcome to How It's Made, and today we are in the Studio 11, with our RFA social media editor, who's going by the Starbucks name Wilson.
Yes.
Hello, Wilson.
Well, thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Okay. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, Wilson is also actually my Starbucks name because like when I go to Starbucks and I order drinks, and of course like, my name is in my native language, and I don't just lazy to spell it Wilson. Call me. And sometimes in Starbucks I need to remind myself constantly that my name is Wilson. So when they call me, I remember it. A little bit about myself. I was a journalist in Asia before coming to the U.S. for grad school, and after done with grad school after 2 years, now I'm in here with Radio Free Asia.
Okay. Now, I wanted to, before we get into it, I just wanted to ask you guys, in the beginning of the show, I said he's not a blood-stained volleyball. Did you get the reference, or am I really dating myself there?
You're dating yourself a bit, but luckily it was a lasting traumatic memory of my childhood.
Okay.
When, like Wilson is lost at sea, right?
Yeah, it's in the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks. Okay. But we wanted to get Wilson in here because, during the English evaluation, which was a few weeks ago, we were looking at the numbers, and Wilson actually took, I think, 2 weeks off before he came back. And the numbers dipped severely when he was not in the office. So he's clearly had an effect on page hits and the number of people looking at, and I guess hopefully on podcast listens.
I hope so, yes.
So we want to talk to him and see what kind of strategies he employs and how he is bringing the eyeballs to RFA's content. But first of all, I would like to ask the question. When did you first hear about Radio Free Asia, and what is it that made you want to work here?
Well, I first heard of RFA when I actually was in high school in my home country, and I started to learn English. And, when I was in high school and started to know what Facebook is, because RFA actually blocked in my country, so social media, like Facebook, was a gateway to get the news. And that's how I learned about RFA.
So you said you first heard about RFA when you started to learn English in your home country. So I'm curious, did you first start to see RFA content in English or in your native language?
I first started to see it in English, actually.
Oh, okay.
Until then, I know that, there's an English website, but it was blocked. And then when I went to university and I have a laptop, and I learned that what VPN is. And then I started to use it to get access to the website and also my native language website.
No, so I wonder, like, there's also like a broadcast that goes out because we are Radio Free Asia, not Web Page Free Asia, right? So I wondered, were you able to also get like shortwave broadcasts, or is that also jammed or blocked where in your native country?
I think it's completely blocked. There's no broadcast there.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. That's interesting. So, but you can use the VPN to get to our webpage.
The website. Yes.
Okay, interesting.
Thank you, technology.
Yes. So, what are some of the most popular stories and posts from RFA English on social media over the past year?
Okay, I will go with Instagram first. Just FYI, more than 40% of our Instagram followers are from Myanmar.
From Myanmar.
Yes. So the most viral post on Instagram is actually a post about Myanmar coup just several months ago in February.
The anniversary.
The anniversary, the 3-year anniversary of the coup with more than 5,000 likes.
5,000. Wow. Is that like a typical number? How does the usual post typically perform?
On a bad day, maybe 100.
Oh,
Sometimes
wow.
we got like 400 or 500.
Okay, so that's like 50 times like a bad day.
Yes.
That's pretty amazing. Okay.
That was a surprise to me because the post was actually a summary of what happened 3 years ago in Myanmar.
Okay.
I think it did well just because it reminded people of what actually happened during that dark periods of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you said the huge audiences in Myanmar. Do you know why that is specifically, or is it just happens to be that way?
I think because previously, Radio Free Asia, we have a broadcasting service in Myanmar, and we have offices there too. Until a couple of years ago when that government told us we cannot use the word Rohingya in our reporting, and we rejected to do that. So we were kind of a popular brand in Myanmar.
All right, what about the second biggie on Instagram?
The second biggie on Instagram was about a Thai lawmaker making move toward legalizing same-sex marriage in December last year. And guess what happened this week? Yesterday, yes. So it was legalized. Same-sex marriage was legalized, right? It was legalized.
I actually worked on that story a little bit yesterday.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Well, I put it up anyway. It was actually done by our affiliate, Binar News, and we sometimes host their content on our webpage.
Now let's come to Facebook.
Okay.
The top post also has a Myanmar twist.
Okay.
A couple of months ago, there was a beauty pageant want to organize in Myanmar for this year. And there was like a cartoon from Rebel Paper.
Oh.
Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember this particular one. Can you describe what it looks like, please?
It was all the women, the Myanmar women, wearing the crown, and like the Miss Pageant, and the name of the cartoon is Beauties in the Eye of the Gun Holder.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's the top post on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So what elements make a news story perform well on social media? Like pictures, videos, headlines?
Well, on Instagram, visual is a key element to grab people's attention because when people they look at the post, they don't read the text first, but they just look at the photos first. And there's come the headlines, because I feel like the headline for social media is different from that, from the headline from website, because it needs context and tension.
So a lot of times I'm seeing it's popular on social media to have these kind of clickbait headlines, where rather than saying what the news is, you like put it in the form of a question, or find out why Myanmar is the greatest place for blah blah blah, right? And then you'll go there. Well, I want to find out why, and then you click it, right?
Right. Or like a cliffhanger, right? Like he explored the underworld of London, and then
right.
Yeah, that's what I try to avoid too, because like we don't, for Radio Free Asia, we only want to bring the accuracy to these audience.
So we've been instructed in the English service, definitely do not make clickbait headlines, even if you really want to. It's like, find out why Kim Jong-un hates his
because like for social media, we don't have the nutcraft in the lead, like when you write a story. So I feel like sometimes the headline need context for that. So for example, yesterday, like instead of saying Thai parliament passes the same-sex marriage law, I would say like one of Asia's most liberal countries move closer to legalizing same-sex marriage, because it gives people context. Like this is one of Asia's most liberal country, and it's the next. So that's still the next step until they can legalize it.
So you're saying sometimes the headlines don't add enough context, and you have to. Yeah, we usually try to put that in the teaser, right? But I guess that doesn't show up necessarily.
Because I only have one like limited space for the text on the photo, right? So I cannot. There's no full sentences. That's
why.
But
I kind of agree with what you said, that a lot of times on social media, if there's no picture, then people don't really want to click on it unless like they're your friend and they want to find out your personal update or anything.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of times when I see stories where like the picture is awesome, but the story is really boring, but people will still click on it because they want to see the picture better,
Yeah, or like a cool illustration.
So shout out to the visuals team, because they put a lot of really interesting illustrations out there that probably bring eyes to stories that otherwise wouldn't get any.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
sure.
So yeah, definitely. But so yeah, pictures, the headline, and what about like media, like videos and?
Well, a lot of people talking about video, like especially vertical video, and the RFA also like started to make vertical video.
Right, that's something we push in the research team for evaluation, since it's so much popular now on like all the platforms across.
Yeah, and now we have TikTok, and do you know like TikTok now have a search button, and it just gives you like recommended keywords to search.
Well, I don't know. Like, I think that, like you were saying, that the vertical video thing, a lot of people are consuming our content on their smartphones rather than sitting at a computer and reading it. And so, like, I'm sitting here, I was just talking about how I'm designing the webpage for our podcast. And I'm like, oh, this doesn't look right. It looks terrible. And then Charlie's like, you know what? You should really be concerned about what it looks like on the phone.
So it's mobile first.
Yes.
For context, Charlie being our podcast boss.
Right.
So more and more media companies like NPR, for example, are leaning into this casual short video format to reach the younger audience. We've also encouraged RFA services to make more effort to publish reels and shorts. So what kind of things do you have to consider when creating a short video compared to a long-form video?
Yeah, it's great to see like RFA services start to making vertical video, because I know that the Burmese and the Vietnamese service started to making that. There was a survey by the Pew Research Center. So in 2020, around 20% of TikTok users in the US get news from TikTok.
Really?
Guess what was the number last year in 2023? How many percent of TikTok users in the US get news from TikTok?
Say like 65 is my guess.
I'll be a jerk and say 66.
Oh.
You both overestimated it. It's all around 40.
Okay.
Almost double.
Well, you're closer then.
I guess also it depends what you consider news, right? Because there's tons of like entertainment channels. And
that's
things.
true. That's true.
Okay, come back to vertical video, or reel, or short, or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
I think it's the first thing that we need to understand who our audience is.
Yes.
And what
that's key.
Yeah.
Definitely, we need to know who our audience is.
Yeah. And what is the personality that RFA want to show on this video?
Yeah.
Do you guys subscribe to any TikTok news channel?
I watched the NPR guy, like the finance and economics guy.
Okay, what is he about? Like, what is the personality?
He makes very like quirky videos to explain complicated economics, like concepts, but in a way that's like very like real to life or like easy to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the Washington Post.
Oh.
TikTok.
Really?
Yeah.
What is their
It's more like funny. They try to make the news digestible, but in a very funny and comedic way.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I'll have
it
to follow
seems
them.
like most go for like a more lighthearted approach.
Yes.
But this
there's-
is just only on TikTok. They're not on like YouTube Shorts or anything like that.
I think they're on Instagram too. They post
Okay.
also. And there was like the under the desk news. So this woman, she tried to also explain things, but she always like hide herself under the desk. Like, yes. So yeah, I think
I mean, that's a creative way of doing it. I mean, she
Yeah.
really shoots it while she's under her desk. That's pretty neat.
So I think we need to know like what we want to show. Like, are we like a know-it-all person, like an old-fashioned person, or a quirky or funny person? Who we are.
Okay.
Yeah, and we need a on-host camera because we need to show this personality. I wouldn't say that video without a host would not succeed. It would be better if we have an on-camera host.
Right.
So you mean when we were shooting RFA videos, we should have somebody explaiing what it is?
Yeah, like the video with like a person talking like in front of the green screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the talking heads. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Facebook has recently had a shift away from news links, and so I just, what do you think is Meta's reasoning behind that shift? And how do we, as a news organization, how have we adjusted to circumvent this as much as possible?
I think there's several reasons for this. The first reason is that in the last few years, Facebook was having like a fight with news outlet.
I see.
Yeah, because this news outlet want Facebook to pay more to post their story on the platform, but Facebook, of course, doesn't want to pay for that.
Yeah, so
now-
Mark Zuckerberg is like, wait, you need me. I don't need you, right? Because he already has the audience, right?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And also like because all the things going on with the election and disinformation and misinformation, so Facebook was like, we don't want to associate with news or misinformation.
Right. And if a lot of people are getting their news on Facebook, I guess they're not anymore. So what has it devolved into is people sharing cat videos and pictures of their children and or boring old people stuff.
As God intended Facebook to be.
Yeah, because I think Facebook try to keep people on these platforms instead of like you post a link and send them away to another website.
How do you navigate to balance between engaging content and maintaining journalistic integrity on social media?
Wow, that's a tough question because sometimes I just want to have more engagement, more view for videos. But of course, like the first thing we need to prioritize accuracy because we're the newsroom. And I fact check carefully before posting anything on social media, especially when it comes to numbers, because as you may know, journalists, I am bad at numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, like, this is another thing that often I struggle with when I am writing a story. Like, you want to put some more attractive headlines in there, and, like, at the same time, you have to have journalistic integrity, and also you have to try to remove bias. So a lot of times, like, we're writing a story, and all the people in there are criticizing China and saying it's so awful, and it's like, look what this terrible thing China is doing in this Southeast Asian country, but you can't have a headline like that. So
that was a comment that came up in evaluations recently, where they would use the word like brutal, for example.
Yeah,
which, may actually be what the conditions are, but that's still an opinion.
It's not impartial, right?
Yeah. Adjective is an enemy, right?
Not always.
Yeah, because I feel like many of our stories can bring emotion, right?
Yeah.
A lot of bad thing happens in this country, so we need to try to avoid sensationalizing.
Yes.
Sensationalizing, yeah.
Okay.
And also hashtag too. A lot of people, they want to use hashtag to bring
hashtags. So you mean like on X, you put the hashtag and then it'll associate
on social media.
Okay.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. Because it may bring you like more likes, but like when you hashtag, like for example, in Myanmar, there's a very popular hashtag like what's happening in Myanmar. Junta must go. But when you use the hashtag, it feels like you taking side.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like, so we couldn't put a story about the junta and say junta must go on it because then that's okay. Interesting. Yeah. I haven't really heard about hashtags. Like, that was a thing like 10, 15 years ago, wasn't it? Like,
yeah, as I guess to speak for the research team, it's not an encouraged practice. It's not in use too much these days.
I sometimes use it on Twitter and Instagram just to highlight, because you use the hashtag, it highlight that words. So people know that which country the story is about. Yes.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, since you gave the example of like junta must go, would it be like kosher to put like junta must go and then like hashtag go junta or something? Like, could you include both sides?
Go junta. I don't know about that. I guess you'd be taking both sides then, right?
Yes, I feel so, yeah.
All right. So you were a journalist in Asia, you said, before coming to the U.S. Do you have any observations on how American audiences consume news and how online promotion of news content differs between here and your home country, if at all?
I feel like American audience tend to consume news to many channels, from like traditional media like television, radio, and newspaper, and now digital platform like website and social media.
Yeah.
Actually, I was surprised when I see that a lot of Americans listen to radio, because here they driving car.
Yeah.
And radio is a big thing, but in my home country, it's not a lot of people listen to radio or podcasts.
Okay.
Another thing is that I've realized that social media like play a key role here among American news consumer. And
but you don't think so much over there? I mean,
like the role of social media may fade away because like these like Instagram or Facebook, they're trying to distance themselves from news. And now this week you've seen that Instagram, they started to limiting political content.
Oh, yeah. So and it was like a setting you can turn on or off on your accounts.
So it may go away, but I think social media will still be here.
All right. Well, I think this has been a really informative episode here. So thank you very much, Wilson, for joining us in here today. And that about wraps it up for the podcast today.
So coming up next episode, we'll speak to one of the staffers on Asia Fact Check Lab.
Yes.
So until then, that was Eugene Huang. I'm Amy Lee. See you next time.
Woohoo!